today, our very special guest is Naomi Nachman, also known to many as the Aussie Gourmet. Naomi first started her own kosher personal chef business, the Aussie Gourmet, in 2004 to cater weekly and Shabbat Yom Tov meals for families and individuals. Naomi has her own cooking show, Sunny Side Up, on the Kosher.com network, and also hosts her own weekly show, Table for Two with Naomi Nachman, on the Nachum Segal Network, in which she discusses all foods-related topics. In addition, Naomi writes a monthly column for Mishpacha magazine covering food and travel, and is also contributing editor to the Jewish Home newspaper for the last 10 years. Distributed in many states across the country, she has been a guest host on the QVC TV network and has made variety of guest appearances on CBS TV in both New York and Washington, NBC Morning News, Fox 5 News, New York, and their Hallmark channel, and has been quoted by Forbes magazine, Wall Street Journal, and Jewish Food Trends. Naomi has become known as a kosher food media influencer and has represented many brands on social media. This is very interesting, Naomi, because we do branding. I want to discuss that with you. In 2018, Naomi was invited to attend the new
You don't have to read the whole bio.
No, I want to read the whole bio because I want everybody to know. Naomi was invited to attend the new Jewish Media Summit, where she met with President Reuven Rivlin, which is very interesting because we were going to interview him before he went out of power, and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, which we were just going to meet in Israel, right the day before he elected the government, the new government. So we have a lot to discuss, Naomi. In the last several years, Naomi has traveled extensively with her family, as well as working on tours with Birthright Pesach program and summer travel. Welcome, Naomi, to our show.
Wow.
Anyone that knows Karen and I knows how much we love food.
We are foodies, Naomi. Welcome to Yentas in the city. We are so happy you are here. So honored. We're big fans. Like Etty said, we are definitely foodies. Naomi, you are an Orthodox frum woman who wears many hats, or shall I say wigs. You are a mother, a wife, an author, a celebrity chef.
A grandmother.
A grandmother.
No, you're not.
Chef.
You look so young.
I actually have to call you a
shaitel.
You are a glamour. So
glamour.
Repeat this. You are a author, celebrity chef.
And
podcast personality. You grew up in Sydney, Australia, for those who don't know, way down under. Can you please tell us about Australia and your love for food and how you got introduced to your love for food?
Start with do one question at a time. Let's do one question at a time. Go, pick your first question.
So yeah, tell us about your upbringing in Sydney, Australia, and how you got introduced to food and your love for food.
Okay, that's 50 questions apart. Because I have my own radio show, so the tables are turned on me now. So I grew up in Sydney, Australia. My mother's parents came to Sydney in 1956. My grandparents met in a displaced persons camp, a DP camp after the war. They got married. I had my mother, real baby boomer, in 1946. In 1948, they emptied out the DP camps. They shipped everyone off to Israel. My grandparents lived there till 1956. They were very poor. My grandfather was always fighting in the armies for Israel. He was very proud that they had moved to Israel. And they loved it, but they just found it very hard economically. But most of all, my grandmother missed her sister, who she was with throughout the war, who got a visa to Australia from Europe. So she went straight to Europe, her younger sister. My grandmother really missed her. So she went to join her sister. Her younger sister sent her a paperwork for her to move to Australia from Israel. The family moved from Israel to Australia in 56. My father's parents, my grandfather came from Israel. He left in the 20s which was still called, Palestine back then. And he came in the 1920s to Australia. He met my grandmother through a mutual friend who was from England. They were pen pals. And then he proposed to her through a letter, and he brought her out to Australia, and they raised 5 children. And then my parents met, my mum was 20, my dad was 26, and they got married, and they settled in the Jewish community of Sydney. It's Bondi is the communities, the suburbs that one of the main populous suburbs of where the whole region is called the Eastern Suburbs, like a bunch of little suburbs together. It's called the Eastern Suburbs. They live there in the same house that basically I grew up in. And yeah, my parents were real foodies. Like, they loved to eat. I think that could be, people say, how'd you get into food? I said, my parents were good cooks. Growing up in Sydney, there was like 2 kosher restaurants. It was a really big deal to go out to eat at the fancy restaurant. Like, mum would say, like, don't order drinks because like it was expensive, So we would go out to eat on very rare occasions, but my parents were really good cooks, you wanted Chinese food, you made Chinese food, you wanted something fancy, you had to learn to cook it yourself. So I think that was definitely, we always had good dinners when I came home from school, soup, salad, protein, side dishes, my dad was an importer of business of food. So he would import kosher wine. Sometimes he'd open wine for dinner. Yes, you can drink at a really young age in Australia.
So it was
or at least your dad let you have.
I want to ask you, were you a mother when you were you a stay-at-home mom and decided to kind of do the food, or from the beginning you knew you wanted to make a career out of food?
No. So I taught for many years. I have a BA in education. I taught for about, a bunch of years on the Lower East Side, where we first settled after I met my husband in America. And then I always used to host these big Shabbos meals. And when I got married, I was teaching and working, and then had kids, but I worked part-time and I had the kids. So I would host, I love to cook. So I would make these big Shabbos meals. And that's really how I got, we didn't have a lot of money when we first got married. My husband was in law school. And I wanted to, I wanted to save money. So I cooked Shabbat meals and, couldn't go out to eat a lot. So I just, if I wanted to eat, sorry, I don't know what's going on here. If I wanted to eat, I had to cook the
food.
Eat, cook. If I wanted to eat, I had to cook. So, so I cooked and cooked and cooked and cooked, and I taught myself a lot. And then I attended some cooking classes at a JCC, and I just read a lot and watched a lot, and Food Network and YouTube. And then someone said to me, you should sell your food. So after teaching on and off for about 10 years, I decided to become a personal chef. This is about nearly 20 years ago. Before there was personal chef, now every girl has got a business, a food business.
I had a personal chef at home, right?
I was doing this 20 years ago when there was no one.
Wow.
And there was basically no internet back then. And not so much, there was no blogs. It was like a website, but there weren't many people I could connect with. I had to figure this out all by myself. And that's what I did. I figured it out by myself. I grew my business. So I didn't wake up one day and say, oh, today I'm going to be an influencer, which I know I am an influencer. I'm not kind of putting down anyone that did that. But, I'm saying, I did this before social media.
So I wanted to ask you, that's exactly what I wanted to ask you. There is one thing to say, oh my God, I'm a good cook. But it's another thing to say you're a media personality. Besides cookbooks, you have your own weekly show, Table for Two, on the Nachum Network. When
Nachum,
you know
Nachum
that you
Segal. I'm Nachman. He's Nachum.
Nachum. Oh, it's Nachum Segal.
Yeah.
I for some reason I have it as Nachman.
Yeah, because it's very confusing.
Yes. So
We
I'm
also
like,
have the same
who is Nachman? Is it somebody from the family? So it's the Nachum Segal
Nachum
Network.
Segal. He's been
So
in
now I
radio
want to
for
tell you,
40 years.
when did you know that you went from just doing cooking to becoming, when did you realize, oh my God, I'm a media personality?
I didn't realize this because I kind of, I started cooking and I put an ad in a flyer. Remember when you've got take your kids to school or your shul and they'd make a flyer and they'd mail it to you and you knew what activities were going on in the school.
Right.
It wasn't a WhatsApp chat or a school email blast.
Right.
You got a flyer in the mail, right? The Old Nation one. So I put an ad in a flyer saying personal chef available. And I had my phone number and I would get calls that way. And then when Facebook started, I used Facebook to share, this is what I made for dinner. And at the beginning of Facebook, you couldn't even put in so many characters. So I had to abbreviate all the recipes. And people go, no way you made that for dinner. I'm like, yeah, I did. So I would, and then I would use my Facebook page to say, wow, I'm catering for Pesach. So, and then Instagram showed I'm catering for Pesach and I would show my food. And then Instagram stories came, and with Instagram stories came the influencer. So as it grew, I grew, we grew together. I predate some of the stuff. So like a lot of girls who can wake up now, it's like, I'm going to start an Instagram page and they find their own voice. They do really well. And they do incredibly beautiful food and they're super creative. But this wasn't there when I started. And I wasn't there for them and they weren't there for me. But together we found each other. Because I'm a bit of a, like you see, I've got a lot of energy.
Yes, you do.
I was always like the actress in my family, or when I went to, camp, I was always wanting to be in the star of the show. I like the camera. I like the people. I like an audience. I like a room full of people.
I'm the
ultimate extrovert.
Are you quick in the kitchen also? Because your personality seems like you're very...
Right.
I'm quick and I'm messy. I will own that. I pay someone to follow me around the kitchen, clean it up after me. I'm very quick and I'm very organized. I'm not organized in any other part of my life. I'm really organized in the kitchen.
Oh,
I can also pack a lot into one day.
Are you a type of person that tastes the food as you're making it? Because I don't taste the food as I'm cooking. Do you eat the food as you're cooking? I don't.
She's like,
are you?
That's why I'm not a chef. That's why I'm not a chef.
I believe you have to season as you go and taste it as you go, but not a mouthful, a lick.
I'll tell you, Karen likes to cook and I likes to eat. I like to eat.
Well, that's gonna lead me to my next question. Actually, we really need to think of. You really need to think about having the Yentas on Sunny Side Up, your cooking show. One Yenta would make you her famous Moroccan fish and French roast, and the other
I've done Moroccan fish already. You need to come up with something different.
I saw that actually, but there's different recipes. So and a French roast, and the other Yenta would make you reservations.
Guess which one is which? No.
Okay, well, I'm coming to LA in a few weeks, so we'll get together and eat.
Okay.
So if we had you in our kitchen, I want to know what you would make for us. And I also want to take the time to talk about, since we're now talking about your specific recipes, because I'd like to know what you would make for us, I'd like to talk about your cookbook, Perfect Flavors, which is available on Amazon for our viewers to know that.
And your local Judaica store.
Yes, and your local
support your local stores.
Right. What makes your cookbook different from other kosher cookbooks? Can you tell our viewers that?
Well, I think everyone has their own voice, and I think that's pretty important to what makes my meatballs different than your meatballs, because every kosher cookbook has meatballs. My meatballs have got pastrami in it because I like rich, deep flavor. A lot of my books reflect my parents' great cooking. My parents have got amazing recipes and the foods that I loved when I grew up, and that I actually pass it on to my children. I also love to travel, and that's, I think, separates me out a little bit. But I've traveled extensively, and I put a lot of those flavors and flavor profiles into my cookbook.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask you, traveling, from what I read about you, is an integral part of your cooking career. Can you tell us about that and about finding kosher food? Because I can tell you something. We went to Azerbaijan right now. Let me tell you something. We paid $1,000. We bought food for about $600, and then we paid $200 going there because we had to go from different countries. And then every time we took that extra suitcase with the overweight, we paid enough. So we paid just $1,000 in like just carrying kosher food, and we couldn't even use half of it. So first of all, by the way, Azerbaijan does not have a kosher restaurant yet. They had one and it shut down. So maybe you should think about opening one.
But they do have Chabad with catering. We found that out.
God bless Chabad and the catering, really.
Right. So can you tell us a little bit about your traveling? You know, right before you came on the show, you told us that you're going somewhere very interesting. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I'm not sure when this is going to go air, but at time of recording, I'm preparing a trip to go to Bahrain. The Jewish community of Bahrain is flying me over. I'm going to Israel for winter break. I have 2 kids that have made Aliyah. My oldest daughter is married and she has 2 kids. So we're going to go see her. And I have another daughter that's in Yerushalayim. Looking to get married. If anybody knows anyone, just reach out to me.
Oh, good. Maybe my nephew.
No. So the Jewish community of Bahrain is bringing me out to Bahrain from Israel, and I'm going to meet with the ambassador. I'm actually meeting with the ambassador to New York from Bahrain, who is actually a Jewish woman.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'll be meeting
anybody to hold your frying pans? Because Eti and I
and my husband. So we are really looking forward to that. Going to tour Bahrain. They just had their first wedding in 50-something years in the synagogue.
Wow.
Definitely they had a lot to do with Peace for Prosperity for the Abraham Accords. They had a conference there. So it's definitely on the map. And I'm staying at the Ritz-Carlton. They're hosting me and my husband.
Amazing.
That's what Karen and I just started doing some diplomacy between countries. Part of the Azerbaijan trip was to do a documentary about the relationship between Azerbaijan and Israel. As you know, they're opening an embassy in Israel. They just announced it about a month and a half ago.
Wow.
So it's very interesting because we are doing it through entertainment, and it's funny that you're doing it through food. And I think that's what will connect countries. It's amazing.
Yeah. So I've traveled a lot. I love to travel. I think Australians in general just love to travel. Our Corona project, you know how everyone was baking the sourdough during Corona and making little TikTok videos on food?
Right.
So we decided, seeing I already knew how to cook and make sourdough, that we would, once they lifted the restrictions a little, we went to states that were open. Remember, there would be red states that had high infection, low states.
Yes.
So we went to this, we kind of followed the trend of what was happening, and we went to visit all the states within the US. Seeing we couldn't fly overseas, we figured we'd fly around the US. And we visited 30 states during Corona.
Wow.
Our total now is 48. And I literally don't even have time this year in 2023 to do my last 2 states because we're just so busy with Israel and Bahrain trips and the Jerusalem Marathon we're going to Israel for. And
before I ask you my question, I'm just curious, are you involved with any Pesach programs this year?
So I was the first Jewish influencer to work on a Pesach program. And now every Pesach hotel brings some sort of influencer. In 2015, Ram Caterers reached out to me to actually just run their culinary program, like entertainment. I ran cooking competitions, like chop competitions and cooking demos. I ran about 18 different overachiever. I ran 18 different culinary programs the first year in 2015. And then the following year, Instagram stories started. So once again, I'm on a program before social media, like before stories. So while I'm on the program, I started for the second year, I started doing stories on Instagram, and that kind of really brought it to life. Now every program brings an influencer, but I definitely can say that I was the first. If anybody they can challenge me on that, I'll be very happy.
Can you let us know?
I like being a trailblazer.
I love your energy. I thought we have energy. I'm like, it's what, 7 o'clock. What time is your time? Like 9?
10:15.
Oh,
yeah, I've got hours of work.
10, and I have like the Yentas have energy. I feel like
I can outlast anyone.
I know, it's very contagious, your energy. Are you able to tell us which Pesach program you're at this year?
Yeah, of course. Please join me. It's Pesach in the Southeast. It's in Stone Mountain, Georgia, at the right outside of Atlanta.
Wow.
I was invited to work on a few different programs, and they're all good, but I really I started working with Bruce Backman, who is the owner of the program, in 2021. It was a small program. He was able to adapt to Corona because they had outdoor tents and private homes that you could rent within his program. What was the name of the island? Isle of something out in South Carolina. It was amazing. And then when you work with someone who's a complete and utter mention, everyone I've worked with has always been a complete and utter mensch. Don't get me wrong. I love working with everyone. But once working with Bruce and we have a good rhythm, I kind of just want to stay with him. I like to ride the wave rather than bouncing to different programs. You don't know what you're going to get.
So what can people do in Georgia during Chol HaMoed? So if you come with a family and you have Chol HaMoed.
A lot. There's so much to do in Georgia, Eti. A ton of things. You could go visit Stone Mountain. You can go.
We're at Stone Mountain. We're actually at Stone Mountain.
Yeah.
Go to the aquarium before Pesach or after Pesach. You go to the Coke Aquarium, the Coke Museum.
You can go visit the Cyclorama. You can go visit.
So I want to tell you, so your program kind of has tours as well for Chol HaMoed?
Well, there's not a lot of Chol HaMoed this year, but everything's nearby.
It's not far.
So are you the celebrity chef, or you're just doing chop competitions?
I do cooking classes and I run chop competitions.
So you're not actually cooking for all the Pesach program. I
can't cook for 1,000 people. I can cook for 8 people.
So
I run a Pesach catering business that I'm working on. As soon as I hang up off the phone with you, I've got to get back to that, my menus.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah. I cater for people for 19 years for Pesach, and most of my clients are repeat customers.
Wow.
So I cook for people for 5-6 weeks before Pesach, put it all in their freezers, and then I work on a program.
Oh, we need you in LA.
Yeah, we need you. I need you for Pesach.
Fly me out.
I just want to tell you, Karen and I were supposed to be in Israel for Passover to film another movie about Jerusalem, and we had to switch the entire filming schedule so we can be home because we just thought about who's going to cook for our family for Pesach.
You know what, Naomi?
I wrote a Pesach cookbook.
Oh my gosh. You know what, Eti? You and I stress out about Shavuot. Eti and I host about 100 people every Shavuot. And I can't imagine how you do it. We stress over 100 people for Shavuot in the desert. We go to the Palm Springs and we schlep the food. We're stressed out. I can't imagine what you go through. It's a lot of
cooking now. Not cooking, but preparing now.
A lot of logistics. Yeah. So Naomi, are you ever honestly burnt out or tired of cooking? And tell us, do you enjoy making reservations or ordering takeout? What would you say?
Yum. I love restaurants. I love when the restaurants invite me. I just ate at all these amazing restaurants in California, and I share it with everyone on my Instagram.
You're from New York, though,
do you
right?
feel that you're more critical of food because of?
Look, I'm not really gonna try to one up any chef that has a restaurant. I'm not a restaurant chef. I think they do an amazing job. I think they work really hard under a lot of pressure. I don't think people realize how difficult being a restaurant chef is and being in the kitchen. So I think we all have to appreciate how hard it is to be in the whole restaurant situation. But I'm pretty easygoing. Like, I hate paying a lot of money for bad food, that's for sure. But I know that sometimes a restaurant can have a bad day, a restaurant can have an amazing day. Like, I'm really happy when someone else does the dishes and cooks for me. That's great.
Right. But isn't that the truth though? Like when you go to a restaurant, the best restaurants are the ones that are consistent. They're always like, you go there and every time you go, the food tastes the same. You know, it's not like hit or miss where, you know, one day you go there and it's delicious and the next day you go there and it's like, what happened? You know?
Right.
It's those consistent restaurants that are the best. And you come from the land of New York where there's some of the best restaurants in the world.
Karen, tell her how many restaurants we went to New York for 2 days.
Yes. Two nights in New York, and we hit 9 restaurants in 2 days.
Why don't you invite me to come with you? You didn't know me back there.
Well, we want to talk to you about coming to Azerbaijan. We're going to do a weekend with Chabad, taking people from LA. Will be hosted by Chabad in Azerbaijan, in Baku. We are working on the logistics of organizing it. It was never done before.
When are we looking to do this?
We don't know because we have, Karen and I have to leave to Israel for like 4 weeks. We're still working on the details to film a documentary. So we'll either do it right before in March, but it might be cutting it too close, or we might do it after Shavuot. Right before this.
Okay, I'm free after Shabbat.
Okay, so we'll definitely talk about it after the show today. No,
stay in the chat room.
Stay with us in the chat room. Naomi, can you please tell us, the listeners, about your work with Masbia, the soup kitchen, feeding the needy? The Yentas are involved with OBKLA in Los Angeles.
And that was started by my high school classmate, Leah Slavin.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. They're amazing. They're amazing.
We're good friends.
So can you tell us a little bit about Masbia? How do you got involved? A little bit about the...
Great question. It's such a good fit having a foodie involved with feeding people. So the founder of Masbia is a gentleman called Alexander Rappaport. I met him at one of the many food events that there are, probably Kosher Fest. And he would come to Kosher Fest and kind of schmooze up with the foodies. And then there's also something called the Jewish Food Media Conference, which is run by my good friend Melinda Strauss. You should definitely have her on your show. She's almost 1 million TikTokers and nearly 100,000 Instagram followers. And we kind of got to know Alex, who would invite us to come down and volunteer, and he'd schmooze with us. And I don't know, it's been such a long time. I don't even remember how it really evolved. But at one point he asked me to join his board of advisors. And I really love being part of what he does. And he has, during Corona, he dealt with so much. It's an organization that I'm not going to do it justice because Alex is an incredible human himself, and you have to see how he does. He's so articulate. They feed the needy of New York. So there's 2 ways that you can either come to the restaurant. It was dubbed by the People magazine. They were interviewed by the People magazine as a restaurant with no cash register. You would go in, they would sit you down, they gave you human dignity. They always make you feel special, and you get a hot meal served to you.
Yeah, I saw that was in.
There was a whole article, not just, it was on the news as well. They did a whole, like a mini.
He's always on the news. Alex is a media junkie.
I saw that it was in People magazine. I think in 2014, it was written up.
Yeah, that's when, yeah. And then the other way is you can register online and and then you register online, and then you go to Masbia at your allotted time and you pick up food for your family. And they have it's open to everyone, but they have if you want to come and you don't want, they do it modestly, but sanua, for the people who are very frum and they don't want other people to see, so they have a special pickup time for them, and you have a pickup time for the just neighborhood people. It's really a beautiful organization, and they work with all kinds of companies that Keiko donates food to them, and a lot of New York Harvest donates to them. I've been to the farmers market with Alex, and people, like he introduced me to some guy. I can't remember his name, so I apologize for that. And at the end of each day, whatever he doesn't sell, like at that point, he gave to Alex to take. And sometimes that they'll just get donations from the city. Like we've got 100 pounds or 1,000 pounds of rutabaga, and they drop it off at Mashpia. Then the chef, which is Ruben Diaz, he's got to come up with a recipe that he can cook with 1,000 pounds of rutabaga. Okay. So you never know what you're going to get. So they're an amazing organization. I'm really proud to be part of it. They've actually got something coming up soon. I'm not sure when this is going to air, but on February 8th, they're running a really big event in New York. They're going to have Chef Naomi Ross, who's a cookbook author, just put out a great cookbook called The Giving Table. And
I saw that.
She's wonderful, very talented cook, and her depth of knowledge of food is incredible. She ties it all into the Torah and Hashem. It's beautiful. And they're bringing out someone from Kentucky. How does these two come together? Mashpia has something called Mashpia Relief. Whenever there's a crisis in the United States, they send a team to help. They really have, it doesn't have to be a Jewish organization. Like they helped the people of Mayfield, Kentucky, after they had that big hurricane. I went with Mashpia Relief. We set up a kosher kitchen outside a non-kosher restaurant because we were able to work together to cook like together. It was amazing. We had a kosher, non-kosher, even though we're serving non-kosher people. And I'll tell you a story about that in a minute. And we set up this, and we became very close friends with he's a Southern Baptist. He owns a restaurant. We doing this great collaboration. He's giving us, like, we really helped him get back off the ground and feed the people. Like we went to the community to help the elderly in Mayfield, Kentucky, because they couldn't get out of their houses. And we went and bought them the food. We helped pack sandwiches. We couldn't eat anything but our own kosher food, but we really helped them. So we're bringing one of the chefs on the restaurant and our kosher chef, and we're doing a tasting menu of real Southern kosher, of real Southern cooking made kosher with Naomi's recipes from her book. They're doing like a joint.
That's amazing.
It's amazing.
That is amazing.
Funny, this adorable story. I was in when I went to Mayfield. We flew into Nashville, Tennessee. It's about an hour and a half north of Nashville. So we drove in and they took us around, and one of the women came over to me. It was between Christmas and New Year that we went, and it was just past Hanukkah. And one of the women came over to me. She put Hanukkah gelt, and I went with my daughter Gabriella. She put Hanukkah gelt in my hands, and she goes in a very thick Southern accent, "My grandma was Jewish, and happy Hanukkah, and thank you for coming." And she gave me Hanukkah gelt, which I don't even know where she got it from, in the middle of Mayfield, Kentucky. Wow. Such a beautiful human interest story. It actually got picked up by the media, and I was interviewed. I can't remember which channel, but I did a big interview. It was really amazing how Mashpia can just take care of our own people, but they have the big wide world. Right. And, I think that's such an important tikkun olam. And
right. It's a Karen. Remember when we went to the rodeo and this lady comes with her accent and she goes, I'm Jewish. And I'm like, you are? And she's like, yeah. And she told us about her grandfather. Right. That, she was so excited to meet other Jewish people,
Right. Yeah. You know what the kids call it in college when they let you know that they're also Jewish? It's called bageling.
Oh, bageling.
My daughter would go, I got bageled in college today.
I got bageled.
It's when someone lets that that they're also Jewish.
Etty and I had one too many bagels in college.
Right. I want to ask you, are you coming to, what is it called? KFWE?
KFWE. I'm actually coming to the LA one. I'll be at the New York one, and then I'm coming to the LA one.
Oh, great. So maybe we can meet you, because Karen and I are probably going to attend as well.
Oh, great. Probably. You are coming.
Okay. Because Nir, Lagandola, Nir is a very good friend of ours, a childhood friend, and he's going to be one of the vendors there.
I know. He's great.
So,
Naomi,
excited.
Before we close out, I wanted to ask you, I'm sure people in your neighborhood are just dying to get invites to your house for a Shabbat meal. I'm sure they're just like waiting for you to call them by the phone. Please come to me for Shabbat. And they're running over. But I wanted to know, what is like one staple so our viewers know that you have on your Shabbat table usually? Is it a roast? What is one thing that you usually have on your Shabbat table?
I can't say there's always one thing because there's always, I always serve chicken soup. Okay. I'll give you the must-have traditional, and then we talk about everything around it. I always serve gefilte fish, plus about my own 3 or 4 homemade dips, a salmon, but there's always gefilte fish because there's always someone that likes gefilte fish.
Right.
Me. And all the other fish, okay? I always serve chicken soup. Now, I make 100 different kinds of soup during the year. I love soup, but Shabbos is chicken soup.
Chicken soup.
I make a big pot on Friday morning. My girls eat it Friday afternoon when they get it from school. A bowl before Shabbos, on Shabbos, and Motzei Shabbos, and we finish the rest on Sunday night. It's a 20-quart pot.
That's a big pot.
It's really big. It's actually 16 quarts. My mother made me ravioli. What's it called? Beef kreplach.
Beef kreplach.
So I have handmade from scratch. It's actually, you can watch the video on kosher.com on how my mum and my mum was my guest and on the show when we made kreplach together.
How special.
And then I'll always serve some sort of schnitzel because we always have someone with kids. You have to have schnitzel for the kids. And then I make some sort of pargiot, a roast, and at least 3 salads.
Oh, yummy. Well, we're coming.
You're invited. Nobody ever invites me to them, though.
Well, Naomi, this was really an amazing interview.
There's so much more to talk about.
Oh my God.
We do.
Your journey to success, both professionally and personally, is inspirational to all of us.
Thank you.
We wish you so much success with your book, your cookbook. We hope for one day for you to have the Yentas cook a meal with you on your show. That would be amazing to have us there. We could just imagine how much fun we would have doing so. We also are working, like Eti said, on having an organized kosher Shabbat tour to Azerbaijan, which would be hosted by the Chabad of Baku. And it would be great if you could join us. We'll definitely talk about that at a later time. We're certain we could collaborate on something in the future together.
I look forward.
Thankful again to have had you here with us today. It's really been just truly a pleasure, and it's the beginning of many more, hopefully, encounters and interviews. Yes. We would like to take this opportunity to thank all of our followers for listening to this episode. Please remember, you can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter and TikTok at Yentas in the City. You could also write to us at dearyentas@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you and answer your letters on our weekly advice column. We would also like to thank all of the behind the scenes team that helps us here. We really thank our supporters, Soft Smart Systems International and Conquest Realty Investments. We really hope you enjoyed this episode, and there's a lot more coming. This is Karen Cohen and Eti Elkis, and we're Yentas in the City. Thank you so much. Be safe, and remember to always be the Ruth in the room.